What happens when two dudes, one a retired Navy SEAL commander in Colorado Springs, and the other a hippie meditation teacher in New York City, get together to discuss living mindfully? That's a great question, because we don't know what will happen either. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with co-hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Each week, we take an authentic dive into how mindfulness continually impacts our lives, deepens our relationships, and allows us to be emotionally alive. We filter all of our conversations through the man box, where we unpack how as men we are expected to act in society, how fighting the authentic human experience is exhausting and damaging, and how mindfulness can help. Now, on to the show.
All right, here we are. Will, good to see you. I love how your shirt almost matches the background. Great to see you, brother. Here we are.
Thanks.
John McCaskill and Will Schneider, Men Talking Mindfulness. We're here to talk about a very important topic today. Specifically, we're going to be talking about how to ask for help, the importance of asking for help, what gets in the way of asking for help in general, and then specifically as men or masculine types, what gets in the way of asking for help, and then how to overcome those obstacles. And we're going to do today's show a little bit different than we normally do. We're going to ask some of these questions to you as the audience right now. Will's going to ask these questions. I'm going to bring them up as slides, and we're going to have you think about them, and then we're going to have you contribute to the chat. So, Will, over to you, brother.
Yeah. Hey, so right now, just write these down like pen and paper, old school, right? And then when the time comes during the show, right, pop them into our feed, as our live audience. So thank you for that. So let's bring up our first question, John.
Which is the feelings. Which one is that one?
Oh yeah, you have anyone, John? I'll read it. So
All right,
just bring anyone.
All right. Raw, authentic, and unapologetic.
Unapologetic.
All right, let's see if I can bring this up.
Oh, there we go. Okay, here. So here's our first question. Again, write down, not in the feed right now, and or if you're out there listening, or driving, just keep these in the back of your mind, and we're gonna bring this into our discussion a little bit later. First is, what are the feelings you've experienced before requesting help from somebody? I'll read it again. What are the feelings you've experienced before requesting help for someone? Okay, so write those answers down for a moment.
Yeah.
Right. And we'll go to the next question.
Technology is kicking my ass today. All right. So let's see. Before, let's go with feelings after. All right. Bring that up.
Yes. Next question, guys. Get ready. Here we go yes. Okay. What are the feelings you've experienced after giving help? Again, I'll read it again. What are the feelings you've experienced after giving help? Right.
Yeah.
So write those questions down. We're going to we'll ask for those later. We got two more questions here. You can see where the show is going to go today, so it's kind of exciting. And I mean, not how it's going to go, but where it's going to go. Right?
That's probably a better way of saying it, right?
All right, next questions. Listen up, right? Again, write these down, pencil and paper. One reason why asking for help is seemingly so difficult. Again, I'll read it. One reason why asking for help is seemingly so difficult. Good. And one last question here.
Yeah.
So take that time and write that down. This is like the timing between these slides are perfect, John, because it gives people the opportunity to write the questions.
That's why we did it, right? That's
exactly why we're fumbling through this. Okay, so the last one. This is the last question. I mean, and the order might change if we bring them into the show. So here's our last question. What are the feelings that you get? What are the feelings that get in the way of asking for help? One more time. What are the feelings that get in the way of asking for help? Awesome. Okay, so new way we're kind of starting the show today. We still have to get through some business to the show. I'll just jump in. We're gonna do some announcements right now. Again, our partnership with Movement RX and Men Talking Mindfulness, we have aligned to create a 21-day mindfulness and movement experience that will kick off in September 15th. September 15th. Yes. Okay. So together, Men Talking Mindfulness and Movement RX are excited to offer you a practical way. That's the key here. A practical way to learn meditation, mindfulness, and breathing practices. Also, along with movement in this 3-week mindfulness and movement experience that we are calling M2. Over these 21 days, Teresa Larson, Dr. Teresa Larson from Movement RX, myself, and John, and the whole team. We have a whole team of experts, physical therapists, nutritionists, and coaches. We're providing you with daily opportunities to know yourself on a deeper level through meditations, movement, yoga practice, mindful running, mindful eating, meal planning, and so much more. Some of this content will be pre-recorded, and some of it will be live virtual as well. So if you're interested, we're going to drop this into the chat. You can find more information at Movement RX, movement-rx.com/MTM. I'll read that again. movement-rx.com/MTM. One more time, did I get this right? Right. movement-rx.com/MTM. Okay, I nailed that one, John.
You got it.
Also, we have a book sponsorship that we're really excited. This is with Keith Fiveson. He wrote this great book called Finding Balance in an Unbalanced World, right? That's kind of the subtitle. The Mindfulness Experience, 8 Strategies to Live Life Now. The Mindfulness Experience is written by one of our listeners and alumni of the Movement RX and Mindfulness and Movement Experience, Keith Fiveson. Keith breaks down 8 strategies to improve and maintain optimal health and wellness, 5 strategies working from inside and out, and 3 working from outside in. Awesome. Additionally, Keith offers assessments and resources to the reader, and each chapter could almost stand alone. But Keith weaves the importance of breath into each chapter, as well as breathes space into our lives, environment, and relationships. And he is living proof of this work. Keith is a 2-time cancer survivor and is thriving. And this the Mindfulness Experience is available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and independent bookstores. So thank you, Keith, for sponsoring the show. And let's take it from there, John. I think it's time for our grounding practice, huh?
I will kick it off the grounding practice here in a second. The one last thing I want to do before that is just show the commercial for the M2 experience, the mindfulness and movement experience, where we, Men Talking Mindfulness, myself and Will, have partnered with Teresa Larson in this experience. So yeah, we're going to try to leverage technology here again and go.
Because life is so chaotic and can be very messy, the longest trip you can ever take is from your head to your heart. My father told me this at many times in my life. That trip is actually the emotional and physical connection that we have with ourselves when we're in these chaotic moments, with our environment. My name is Dr. Teresa Larson. I'm a former Marine, pro athlete, now doctor of physical therapy.
And I'm John McCaskill, retired Navy SEAL commander turned mindfulness and meditation teacher. The two of us have blazed this trail. It took us years to do so, to get a feeling of peace emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And we want to help you blaze that trail in just a fraction of the time. And if you want to take your own journey and learn how to do this faster, check out our mindfulness and movement experience. There it is. All right. So excited to get into the show, excited to get into this grounding practice. And since we're talking about asking for help, I wanted to do a grounding practice where we're going to be thinking about vulnerability, because it takes vulnerability, and vulnerability is strength, to ask for help. So that said, if you're driving, keep driving. If you're near anything that's dangerous, don't close your eyes. Just be with us in this practice. But if it's safe and you're comfortable to do so, close your eyes and bring your awareness to yourself, your awareness of yourself in the present moment, your physical and your emotional self, what you're thinking, what you're feeling physically and emotionally. And now, I want you to focus specifically on the emotions. And imagine yourself in need of help. Imagine needing to ask for help. I'm sure in some form or fashion right now you are in need of help. Now imagine asking for that help. And as you're imagining that, notice the emotions that are associated with asking. And as you notice those emotions, think about why those emotions are coming up. Are you feeling weakness, vulnerability, shame, guilt, a loss of control? There's no judgment from us, and there shouldn't be any judgment from yourself for feeling those emotions, but understand those emotions, understand why they're coming up. And now imagine yourself overcoming those emotions, and think about the times that you have overcome those emotions in the past and been vulnerable enough to ask for help. And remember the outcome. More often than not, you most likely received help. And because of the help, you were able to get past whatever adversity, obstacle, pain. You were able to get past that. Remember the importance of help. Remember the emotions that prevented or nearly prevented you from asking for help. And then remember the outcome of asking for help. And we'll close this grounding practice with one deep cleansing breath together and then discuss a lot of what we just felt. Begin by breathing all your air out, bringing your navel to your spine. Big deep breath in down to your belly. Hold that at the top and let it go nice and slow. Slow, slow. And as you do so, start to bring some movement back into your body. Movement, that's one of the pieces that we're teaching in the mindfulness and movement experience. And blink your eyes open if they're closed. Otherwise, just bring your focus back onto the screen here or whatever it is you're doing as you're listening to this. And here we are. Will, how you doing? How you feeling, brother?
Good, really good. I'm gonna jump right in, John. And one of the
Let's
things
do it.
that came up for me during that exercise is every time I'm asked for help, and sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small. Almost regardless of the situation, it always either established or improved or strengthened a relationship I was in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's that's like one of the biggest. I mean, and you know, and like me being more of a mindfulness practitioner, and me being out there and like exercising these things, like you know, I have no problem. You know, we talk about vulnerability all the time, like being vulnerable, asking for help, and just kind of putting ourselves out there. But then I think that really, it's like every time I ask for help, it allows the other person to be seen. People typically want to be helpful, right? I mean, especially because I mean, when you're asking for somebody, whether it's something technical, you know, hey, can you help me with my printer isn't connecting to my computer or something like that? Hey, can you help me with that?
Right.
You know, you're actually asking people in those circumstances, right, to level up their expertise to help you, which so they kind of have this like, oh, I feel great, like, oh my God, yeah, I can do that for you. So I mean, those are kind of some of the things during just that little meditation that started coming up for me, and it just really creates an amazing stepping outside of that. What I have here written down in an old paradigm in this article that I read, it says, you know, this is what a lot of the struggle is for people with help. It's like asking for help equals unable to help yourself, right? Equals helplessness, equals victim, equals weak. right? This is like kind of a lot of that man box, or, not just for men, but a lot of other people. But what we just kind of experienced, what I'm talking about here, right, is a new paradigm. Vulnerability plus asking for help, right, equals more happiness plus success.
Yeah.
So
I love it, man. That's powerful. And just in preparing for the show and reading those notes, I think many of us, and again, more specifically, probably the masculine energies that are listening to the show or watching the show, live in that old paradigm. And I've got it here up on the screen. If you're able to look at it, old paradigm, like Will mentioned, is asking for help, means that you're unable to help yourself, which means that you're helpless, which means that you're a victim, which means that you're weak. Which is completely ludicrous, right? It's completely ludicrous. But the new paradigm that we're hoping that you can shift to in life and after listening or watching the show, the new paradigm is vulnerable, leads you to ask for help, which leads to happiness and success. And it, as Will mentioned there, it does potentially deepen relationships. It does allow you to look at things a different way, right? You get an outside perspective. I've got a group that I'm a part of. It's called the SJ4 Mastermind Alliance. SJ4. The reason it's called SJ4 is there's 4 Johns, literally, and one guy named Saul. Saul and 4 Johns, so SJ4. And we meet once a month, and we discuss what we need help with. We discuss our goals. We discuss obstacles that are getting in the way of that. We discuss pain, sadness, and we also find ways to hold one another accountable. And that is helping us to grow. And yesterday, we each time we meet, we have a person who's the kind of the point of focus for the show, or not the show, but the discussion. And yesterday, I was the point of discussion and point of focus. And I was a little nervous going in, and I was like, crap, what am I going to tell these guys, right? What do I need to share? What am I having trouble with? And I decided I'm going to be completely 100% open and honest and vulnerable with these guys. I took the metaphorical mask off, put it aside, and opened up to them. I mean, opened up to them like I open up to you, Will, a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
And they were able to offer me outside perspectives on things, views on things that I hadn't looked at it before, and it helped me to grow. So not only does asking for help potentially deepen a relationship, but it also helps you to grow individually, because you see things in a different way. Because we get caught up in the way that we see things. And one of the things that Teresa and I talk about quite often in the mindfulness and movement experience is perception. And perception versus reality. What is our perception of life? And having somebody else offer a new perspective can help change that perception and get our perception closer to reality. I think that's important. And then also our perception of ourselves and asking for help. What is that perception? That's coming back to that perception of weakness, perception of not having control. So I've rambled on long enough, Will. Back over to you.
No, I'm with you. And it's like, it's just, again, that old paradigm. Asking for help equals unable to help yourself, equals helplessness, equals victim, equals weak. And if that's your perception, right, of, we're human beings, John, and we thrive, right, through community, through connection, and in order to, and part of that thriving and part of that connection is asking for help, right? And there's some really big asks, and we'll get into this a little bit later. There's some like really big asks. It's like, hey, can you, really, whatever it can be, like, help me move, that can be a pretty big ask, because it's a massive undertaking, and it's like requires a lot of work and a lot of effort. It could be something, small. It's like, hey, can you help me download this app on my phone for like a minute or something like that, right? And so I thought it'd be nice, like, here's like some psychological reasons why it's tough to ask for help. We have this article here that I read online. You can drop it into the feed, John, if you want. It's asking for help often makes people feel uneasy because it requires surrendering control to someone else. Right. I mean, that's like, I mean, think about that, like surrendering control again. So surrendering, well, control, right, is kind of the opposite of that vulnerability, right? So just being exposed. Here, another one, and we've kind of mentioned this already. Another fear is being perceived as needy. You may help. It may help that people have their own worries to take care of. So yours aren't significant. So you're just like, oh, I don't, people have their own problems or their own like families or they need their own time. So, I might come off as needy if I ask for help. Another one is fear of rejection. No, can't help you. How painful could that be for some people? And the irony is that most often people do want to help, like I mentioned earlier. Again, we talked about part of it gets in the way of being vulnerable. And lastly here, again, just kind of reiterating, being perceived as weak, and allowing people to see you don't have all the answers, right? Which I think is a big, it's kind of instilled, within how we're kind of educated in a lot of ways, because we got always trying to get the A, right? Always trying to be the best student, always try to have like the ability to figure things out on our own. And when we ask for help, we kind of, again, we get into that vulnerability that's really required in order to, how many times, John, we talk about compassion and vulnerability as a means for success in life and happiness as well.
Yeah, it's huge.
So
I mean, that's literally what probably 30 or 40% of our show.
Yeah.
And our episodes are about vulnerability or compassion in some form. And then what I teach on the outside when I go and do some of the public speaking and keynotes that I do, I talk about vulnerability and compassion and how important they are as a leader and for an effective team. For an effective team, it's critical. As a matter of fact, in preparing for some work that I'm going to be doing here soon, I'm rereading the Culture Code. I think it's Daniel Coyle. I'm screwing up on the author. I'm pretty sure it's Daniel Coyle. But there's a part in the book where he analyzes this aircraft. It's a passenger airliner, and the pilot and co-pilot are flying along, just chatting, and then something happens. One of the engines goes out. I forget exactly, but some critical shortfall happens, right, to where the plane is most likely going to crash. And the co-pilot turns to the pilot. He's like, hey, what do we do? And the pilot is not wanting to show vulnerability. Get this. Okay, the pilot of a plane with hundreds of people in the plane is not wanting to show vulnerability. And he says, I've got this. And he grabs the steering and he tries to right the plane, and he can't. And he turns to the co-pilot and he realizes that what he's done is not show vulnerability, and his pride has gotten in the way. And he says, do you have any ideas? So by asking that question, he instantly changes the paradigm, changes the relationship between co-pilot and pilot, and shows that he's vulnerable. And the co-pilot starts throwing out ideas, and they start going back and forth like 60, 70 times a minute ideas. And then somebody from the back of the plane is a trainer, like an aircraft pilot trainer, and comes up to the front. He's like, he probably with his being a trainer has more experience than both the pilot and the co-pilot. Comes into the compartment and says, rather than saying, hey, you need to start doing this, you need to start doing that, he says, how can I help?
Boom.
That's what he says. And even though he's got more experience, he says, how can I help? So he shows vulnerability. And they right this plane. I mean, it lands in a ball of flames, does flips, but everybody walks away alive because of the communication that they had, and because of, rather than the pilot saying, I've got this, and crashing the plane, killing everybody aboard, he admits his vulnerability and says, does anybody have any ideas? And that right there is the sign of how being vulnerable and asking for help can physically save a life, and not doing it, doing the inverse, being too proud, can quite honestly hurt yourself physically or hurt many others. Another example is as men, masculine types, we're less likely to go and see the doctor. And seeing the doctor is a form of asking for help, right? You say, okay, well, I've got this something growing on my skin. I know as a man, I've done this myself. I see something, I'm like, it's nothing, right? I can fix this. I'm a man. I can just look at it and it's going to go away, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously it doesn't. But there's studies shown that there are fewer men than women that have skin cancer, that get skin cancer, but more men die from skin cancer than do women, and that's simply because the man is likely to see something and say, "I will get to it later," or "I will think it off of my skin. I'm tough. I will overcome this." And that's just one anecdote with the health. But what else are we missing? What else are we missing by not asking for help? What else are we missing by not going to the doctor? But
Mhm.
what else are we missing in our lives in general of not asking for help? So
Well, you bring up a really coming back to that whole the situation in the cockpit. Like instead of like being in your sitting in pride, right? Which like sitting in pride, just I mean, I picture like walls all around you. I got this.
yeah,
Stay out, stay out. Don't help me, don't help me. And then I mean, thankfully he was smart enough and he released the walls of pride, came down. He's like, look, I need your help. Look how that changed the emotional dynamic between them,
right,
right?
right,
Instead of it being
instantly,
like, yeah, right. Instead of like the pilot, sitting in his pride and refusing to look outside of those four walls of pride, or maybe there's six, top and bottom too, right? Or yeah, you know what I'm saying.
yeah, the box,
And the other guy, yeah, in the box, right? And the other guy, right, sitting, he might be thinking like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? We're gonna die. We're gonna I wish you'd ask, I wish you'd listen, or I wish you'd connect with me. And as soon as right, he asks for help, boom, all of a sudden their emotional dynamic changes, right? They
totally,
start conversing. There's trust automatically in some ways that come into that. I mean, on some levels, there has to be some trust that happens. And look at that vulnerability even extends out further for that passenger and that expert to come in the cockpit to help them in that particular circumstance. And everybody's on board in order to try to fix this problem. This also reminded me of in the beginning, this story of the whole Chernobyl, right? Of
oh yeah,
I
yeah,
got this, I got this, I got this. Whereas, like, what if they're like, hey, oh my God, I screwed up, or hey, I don't know what to do, or hey, like, let's have some like suggestions about how to solve this problem. Like, how could have they avoided, all those lives that have died and all the
right,
still the problems that they have today, because of
right,
that nuclear meltdown, because
right,
of that particular pride or that particular emotional toxic emotion that's part of not just men but
pride,
everybody.
ego, right,
Pride, ego, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that's a
Being in
big thing,
control, like all those kind of things. Well, why don't
right?
we John, why don't we get into these questions for our group and we can kind of
Let's do
move
it.
on from there. How's that? All right,
Yeah,
so the first one, so put everybody's out there, please, put in like one or two feelings, because we don't have time to kind of read a lot of them, or maybe just one. So the first one, what are the feelings that get in the way of you asking for help? Once again, put in the chat here. You can type them in, please. What are the feelings that get in the way of you asking for help? John, I'll put that over to you for now
yeah,
while we see what
yeah,
comes into the feed.
sure. I mean, initially, there's pride, and what we mentioned before, ego. As a matter of fact, that's what I opened up to a counselor recently about, and the Mastermind Alliance that I was telling you about earlier, is that
Mhm.
ego, I think, causes a lot of problems in my life, right?
Mhm.
Not just not asking for help, but ego causes me pursuing a career that may get in the way of my family. You know, ego causes me not to reach out to a friend that I haven't spoken
Mm.
that I haven't spoken to for years, because I have a feeling of rejection or an embarrassment. And that we talked about last week, all the different emotions and how each emotion has underlying emotions. I
Mhm.
think the pride is the overarching one, and then underneath those are embarrassment, fear of rejection. I think
Right.
those are some of the big ones that also drive me not to ask for help.
Yeah. I mean, for me,
Yeah,
it's like I don't want to. I might feel stupid. Ask for help.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, it might just, once I get that help, it might just feel like, oh, well, I should have been able to figure that out on my own or something like that. Also what gets in the way of, of me asking for help sometimes is just, again, that fear of rejection. Sometimes it's just being like, being dissed or being turned down, which I think also, in that particular circumstance, ask for help, it also allows me to see, like maybe other areas in my life that, I don't like being rejected, like, or asking for a job or trying to, get a job or something like that and getting rejected. So it's like, maybe even, there could be, that fear of rejection is also is tethered to situations like this, like asking for help or being vulnerable or even asking, say, for like a date or something like that, back in the day,
Right.
so that's like, so that's definitely something that's coming up for me,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, that's asking for help, fear of rejection. That I think is probably one of the biggest ones, fear of rejection or feeling like you're not going to be in control. And I see one of our watchers here admitting that you can't do this alone, right?
Yeah.
How many of us can do life from beginning to end alone, completely alone? None of us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm seeing that, very much so as a father. I've always heard the saying, "Hey, it takes a village to raise a kid." That is so fucking true. Like I've got 3 kids. Last week, we went to this downtown thing with 2 other couples, and I think across the 3 couples we had, I don't know, 6 or 7 kids running around downtown. And we just had to divide and conquer. We're like, okay, parents, take charge. But guess what? You may be in charge of somebody else's kids as we're kind of following them around the city. And I was like, oh, this is a time when I have to be completely vulnerable and allow somebody else to take charge and help with my kids, and I'm going to help with theirs. But I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. Nobody here on the show can do it
Right.
alone. None of our listeners, watchers can do it alone. And we're all here to help in this human experience. So yeah, let's see some of the other comments that we
Yeah,
got
someone,
here. We see them coming
Alan
in.
put in
Go
here,
for it.
he said something about, he's afraid of, seeming like afraid to bother somebody to ask for help because they don't have time or they're too busy. I mean, and that's very real, and that could be, that also might come up with that feeling of being rejected or again, that feeling of being needy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or, or feeling like, even what Christine said, admitting that you can't do something. Right. These are all like, this could be like one excuse or one mental concept that's wrapped around, right. Or is that a feeling? Right.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And Neil's got a pretty powerful one here. It has to do with suicide. And before I get into the question here or the comment from Neil in regards to suicide, that is another thing where men unfortunately are leading the charge, is that we have more
Sadly.
men taking their lives every year than women, because men are less likely to reach out to their network, to reach out to their friends. They're less likely to make friends later in life because they feel, hey, you meet somebody, you meet another man, and if you want to become friends with them, it feels as though you're admitting that you need them, you're admitting weakness, or even hey, I may be perceived as homosexual because I want to be friends.
Oh yeah. I
Which
mean,
is
I've
just
been there.
ridiculous, right? Right?
I've absolutely. It's like, that whole, actually this past Monday, I hung out with a new friend at the beach, and it was like, I met him with another group of friends, and this was like several weeks ago. And, it's a good group of guys. It's all like a solid group of guys. And we had talked about, I was like, hey, like, I haven't really been to the beach many times this summer. Like, I wanted to go over Labor Day weekend. I was like, let's make this happen. And there was like 4 or 5 guys on in that, at that time. And then it was just ended up me and this other guy who I've never hung out with before. Right.
Yeah.
Never hung out with before. And some of these thoughts are coming up for me. Is like, oh, is he gay? Is he going to think this? Is he going to think that? And not like there's anything wrong with that. It didn't really matter to me. I didn't know where he was on that spectrum. But again, it didn't really make a difference.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
But it was And it was just like, but we went and we had a great time, and now I have a new friend, and somebody that I can just like, who's kind of in the neighborhood that I can be like, hey, let's go do this, or let's go for a walk, or, let's go hang out and just get a beer, and like somebody with a different mind, a different heart, right? A different human being that can help me and I can help him just with whatever was coming up for us in that particular time in our lives. And it was really,
It's
and just
huge.
even John going to the beach with this guy that I've never really hung out with before. What started it? Just even that's a vulnerable moment right there.
Yeah.
And because of that first vulnerable moment, it kind of later, as we're like hanging on the beach and just having a good time, it was a beautiful day on this past Monday. He started opening up about problems he's having with his living situation with his roommates.
Yeah.
And like, so he was like willingly like, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. This is what's happening. And we just had a really nice discussion. I just, kind of listened and helped. And I think Lindsay earlier before the show, it's like the difference between venting and asking for help. They're kind of two different things as well. And sometimes it's just to hold space, which requires vulnerability and a lot of presence. Just holding space for somebody else to vent is also a way of helping them just to kind of move through the emotional whatever's going to turmoil that's coming with them, and maybe get them into more clarity and to be more effective with what they're going to do next in that particular relationship or that particular aspect of their life.
Right. And that all said, man, I want to get into the next question, but before I do that, I want to bring up, and we've discussed this before, the infamous man box.
Oh,
right?
John, you're popping up the man box. We did not talk about this, John, before the show. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Go to the man box, dude.
The man box. I mean, and everything that's in that man box. Hey, we've talked about confined masculinity before on the show, and what is this man box? Literally, like what's confining us is it's not okay to cry openly. It's not okay to express love for one another. It's not okay to express happiness. Like the only acceptable emotions of a man are anger, yada yada. I mean, you can see the rest of the thing on the man box displayed here, but this gets into the inability or the fear. That's what it really boils down to: the fear of men asking for help, the fear men have of developing new relationships. That all boils down to fear. And hey, if you're one of these ultra masculine bravado men that beats your chest all the time and I will have no fear, then guess what? You can ask for help. If you have no fear, you are strong enough to ask for help. If you have no fear, you are strong enough to make new friends. If you have no fear, you are strong enough to be vulnerable and open and grow individually and in relationships. So it's kind of it's ironic that all these men that beat their chests and say, I am brave, I am strong, I will conquer the world, I have no fear. Yet, in all honesty, they're some of the most fearful people in the world.
Yeah,
they can't get past that fear. Oh man, I'll stop there with the man box, but it leads right into Will and I got an email, and I won't mention names here, but we got an email from one of our audience members this week who had lost his father.
Yeah, yesterday.
He'd lost his father to COVID, and he was openly crying about it. And he emailed us to find out if this is a normal thing, if this is okay. Not only is it normal, but is it acceptable to cry openly? Of course it is. You've just lost your father early. You're experiencing grief and emotions, and to not display that, those are the people that I'm concerned about. Those are the people that I'm really worried about in this world. Hey, if you're not expressing your grief, your loss after the loss of your father, that's what you need to be concerned about. Openly crying, I think it's perfectly normal, and it needs to become more acceptable. In society. I mean, I know among some of the ultra masculine personalities that I've surrounded myself with in the past, if they see a woman experiencing emotions, a woman crying, they're like, women,
Oof.
right? That's what they say.
Right.
I'm like, well, okay, that woman, what's going on in her life? What did she just experience? Did she just experience loss? And then if you kind of peel that back and you say, okay, well, that woman just lost her husband, her father, then it's like, oh, that's okay. But if it's
Yeah.
if it's a man that's openly expressing that grief, then it's like, oh, he's weak. Suck it up. Go cry in your own time. Cry behind closed doors. Don't. That's not normal. That's not okay. We need to be okay with expressing our emotions. Coming back to
Yeah.
the emotional awareness that we discussed last week.
Well, that listener that emailed us, he even took it a step further. Instead of just like, oh, I'm crying, like he lost it. Like he just like uncontrollably, I think is the word that he used, just like, oh my God, could not, I mean, notice like that word uncontrollable, meaning like I couldn't control it anymore because it was so big. It was so great. It was just like this volcano of like, of sorrow and sadness and all this. Oh my God, I can't even think about losing my dad. But like that's like wow. And imagine we're going to move on to another question. Imagine if you don't emote like that and you hold it in. Where is that energy going to be locked in your body? Is that going to cause you? What is that going to create inside of you? That energy down the road. I mean, could it be some sort of like stomach this or a cancer or something like that, because you're unwilling to be like, raw, just like let go of that emotion and let go of the control that gets in the way of having whatever that experience is going to be. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, like, you lost you lost your father, you lost your mother, you lose somebody that's like, and we're also talking about like, oh, it's okay to cry big when you lose your father. I mean, it's like, it's okay to cry and have emotions like whenever, they come up. It's okay to express them.
And what's keeping us coming back to that man box? What's keeping us from openly expressing that emotion? What's keeping us from crying? Judgment and fear. Fear of judgment. So again, if you are truly courageous, you can cry. Like I've stood at ramp ceremonies. Ramp ceremonies where we lower the ramp on an aircraft and we literally carry the bodies of fallen soldiers, warriors onto the aircraft. And some of the biggest, baddest warriors I've ever seen are openly weeping.
Yeah.
Because guess what? They're not fucking scared to. So, all right. Sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox.
No, John. Hey, I know. No, but John, this is like really, I know we're talking about asking for help, but but it's like, again, we get back into the emotions of what it takes to ask for help. And if you're more willing to ask for help and be vulnerable, that, I think what we're tying in here today, or part in this little discussion now, it's like you're going to be more willing to be more emotionally available and more emotionally expressive, right, as you move through life. So this one little piece of mindfulness, asking for help, it starts to again have that domino, have that ripple effect. Like it's like, oh, it's okay to do this. Oh wait, I don't need to have fear around that. I don't need to control this. I can ask for help. I could be vulnerable. I could see things in a new way. And it's just all you unlock one, all of a sudden, boom, the dominoes start to fall. All right, let's go to this next question.
I want to get into one of the answers to that question. So one of our listeners here says, I know me personally, it's me being in a position where I'm responsible for others and I will give help willingly, but I'm more afraid to ask those same people for help for fear of them thinking I am weak.
Oof,
okay,
there it is.
This comes back to vulnerability, trust. It actually comes back to the culture code that I'm reading. In it, they talk about, the author, I swear it's Daniel Coyle. I should have it right here in front of me. Hey, Lindsay, back me up. But I'm pretty sure it's Daniel Coyle. Anyway, he talks about many cultures, organizational cultures that are very strong. The leadership openly admits, okay, Lindsay said it is Daniel Coyle. Thanks. Boom. Openly admits vulnerability. Openly admits, hey, I don't know everything. Openly admits when they need help and asks for it. And by expressing that vulnerability first, they build trust in the organization. You don't get trust and then become vulnerable. You express and show vulnerability and you get trust from that. And that's where so many strong organizational cultures are built. So thank you, Jason Scott, for throwing that out there. Great comment.
Well, I think that trust comes from, John, willingness to be seen instead. I mean, think about, we talk about putting on the mask versus like taking off the mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like when you put on the mask, it's like, wait, is he, I don't know how to, kind of approach, or I don't know what to do, because it's like, do I come from this angle? Do I come from that angle? Do I come, I'm talking to angles. It's like, how do I communicate with this person? Right. Versus, if you're just there and present, right, and open and available, right, and heartful, right, you're going to be like, oh, hey, I see who he is, or who she is, or who that person is.
Yeah.
And you become also more approachable. So therefore people be more willing to ask for help. Right. But also it goes both ways. Like you're going to be more willing to ask for help if you're taking off that mask and being more vulnerable.
Right on.
So let's ask this next question. So what do we did? Okay. Here we go. So we talked about a little bit. So just feelings, guys. Looking for words, feelings. What are the feelings that get in the way of you asking for help? Right. I'm going to ask 2 questions. So write down just your simple feelings. What are the feelings that get in the way of asking for help? We kind of might have beat this to death, but that's okay. And then another one, or should we just? Well, John, we've talked a lot about those feelings, right? So just kind of reiterate them again, if you want. So we talked.
Let's see. We did speak. I think we spoke at length there about the feelings that are preventing you, that are getting in the way of asking for help. But what are the feelings that you're feeling before asking for help? What feelings did you experience before requesting help? So what gets in the way?
There you go. Yeah.
What gets in the way of asking for help? But then what feelings have you experienced before requesting help from someone? And again, some of those may be the very same, but there's also the flip side. As you're asking, you may be experiencing a feeling of hope, a feeling of wow, some weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Even if you don't receive the help, just asking for it. And I know Lindsay and we all talked about this before the show. Maybe that's all you need, is just for someone else to hear you, someone else to hear that you're in need, and that can alleviate some pressure. It can feel like you've had a whole lot of weight lifted off your shoulders. So I think that's some of the things that we experienced before. So hope as you're asking, and then just as you say it, I think you may feel some weight lifted off your shoulders.
Getting out of your comfort zone is what comes from up for me right now. Like getting out of your comfort zone, and think about, again, what does zone mean? A zone is a box. A zone is like, a defined space, a defined area in which you function, right? But being uncomfortable, letting go of control, and just like stepping into the unknown is always going to be a little scary, but that's where the opportunity is. That's when you're going to experience things that a little bit differently. Here's John Wayne Mullins. I love John Wayne.
Yes.
Great parents, John. He says shame, embarrassment, pride, anger. I can't read the rest of it.
However, once I did ask for help, it felt so freeing, is what it says.
There you go. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yep, absolutely. And then let's see, we got what you're talking about is what we call the mirror effect. Yeah, mirror effect. What we see in ourselves in the mirror is not the same as how other people see us. It goes beyond granularity. People do not see our perceived fears and weaknesses due to perspective. The reality of the world, of how the world perceives us, is not what we perceive of ourselves. Fear, and then I'm losing it. Fear is an internal emotional response. We accept it as part of us, take warning from it, but do not let it channelize how we live. I love that. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for listening, and thank you for that great and powerful comment.
Yeah, exactly. So. And we just automatically think, if I'm feeling this way, then the other person must feel the same way.
Right.
And that's like, and how egocentric is that?
Yeah.
How it's,
absolutely.
how is like, and it's like, wow.
So what about what are the feelings you've experienced after giving help?
Yes, that's the question here.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So what are the feelings that you've experienced after giving help? So please put your answers in for that. What are the feelings you've experienced after giving help? John, tell us your feelings, please.
Oh man, dude, I'm sharing a lot of feelings today. So yeah, after giving help, I feel the same thing I feel when I do something for myself, right? I feel a sense of accomplishment. a sense of a relationship growing. I get those
Yes.
same chemicals that make us feel good throughout the day when we get something done. We get the dopamine hit. We
Yeah.
get
Oxytocin, the
oxytocin, right?
bonding.
The bonding, oxytocin.
Mm-hmm.
So you can literally help to feel better by helping others out. I mean, that's I think what drives a lot of service members to want to
Mm.
serve in the military is their heart of service, their want to help others that can't help themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling that I get after I help someone. What about you, man?
Well, I mean, same. It's like, it's a bonding agent, right? Christine wrote here, fulfillment, a sense of fulfillment. Like it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't struggle so much with asking for help. I feel like I'm always asking for help, in some ways, depending on what it is. Because I know it's like, because I think I'm not stuck to a limited set of feelings, right? I've expanded a little bit into like, well, hey, like I always feel better. And I also I've typically experienced, not just how I'm feeling, but how the other person is feeling when they feel helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like one thing as we're doing this research, it's like, if you have trouble asking for help, go the other way, offer to give help and see how that changes things. It's
Right.
like, hey, do you need some help? Take the request.
And you notice that giving help makes you feel good, right? So why would you not want to ask for help so that you can help? By asking for help, you're essentially helping the helper. You're helping them feel good because they're helping you out. That or at least there's that potential. And so let's get into some ways to ask
best
for help.
practices kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of the time, if you have a fear of asking for help from someone, it may be because that relationship has been very one way. And maybe if you are in a helping relationship where you help them and they help you, not in like a transactional sense, but we're just there as support for one another. What we talked about last week, right? The support network. If you're open to helping, you're probably more likely to ask for help. So be open to helping. What else? What else you got, Will?
Well, you mentioned transactional, so be conversational instead of transactional.
Oh yeah.
And again, it's like, instead of being robotic, like, oh, hey, I need, just be like, hey, I mean, it could be something as simple, I'm struggling with this, and I'm wondering if you can help me, or I've seen you seem to be an expert at this, or you seem to know what you're doing with this. I was wondering if you can take a few minutes and help me with it, because I've, and another thing that they say, or through, we have this Psychology Today article that has been helpful in informing our discussion here. And it's like, you can also explain, it's like, hey, I tried myself. I can't get the solution. I was wondering if you can help me. So even kind of explaining yourself in some ways, of the effort that you put in on your own could be a nice way of kind of, asking for help. And it sounds like a bit of as I say that, it sounds like a bit of like an excuse or a way of talking about your feelings about it, or not your feelings, but kind of usurping. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, John. Let's just go on to the next.
Let's just go on. I'll help you out. Just go ahead and ask for help, man.
Oh yeah, John, help me out, John. Do the next one.
Gotcha. All right. So yeah, I mean, one is saying that you've tried to help yourself. The other is that telling the person that you're asking, maybe you've asked them for help before. Ask them, but let them know that the last time you asked, you acted on the advice they gave you. Then they're probably more likely to help you, because they're like, okay, they didn't just hear me and then do nothing with the advice I gave them. They actually took an active role in helping themselves through the advice that I gave them. And I think that's a great one. The next one is consider the timing.
The timing, I think, is really is, like, you don't want to be asking somebody if they're like, think of our Dr. Teresa. I wouldn't be asking for a lot of help right now from Dr. Teresa, because she's moving her house. You know what I mean? She's moving from San Diego, going to Durango. So it's just like, so think about, and that's going to create, that's also being socially, circumstantially, and more emotionally aware, other people too, which is part of that mindfulness too. So just being, considering the time of your request. So that's something to be aware of as well.
Right. And then, being clear in your request.
Absolutely.
Don't kind of beat around the bush, like come out and ask for it. Right. Asking very clearly what it is you need help with or guidance on, asking clearly so that they don't have to guess. And then I think that's a big one, but that comes back to one of the comments earlier about suicide, the flip side of that, right? Not just asking clearly for help, but also if you see somebody that may need help, asking clearly how you can help. Don't say, hey, not just, hey, are you okay? Because the general answer to are you okay is, yeah, I'm doing great.
I'm fine, John.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah.
Fine.
Hey, are you, how's your day going? Everybody's day, if it, man, I tell you what, if everybody's life was as good as everybody says it is when they answer the question, how's your day going? Man, this world is awesome, but it's not. It's not that good. Right?
It's not. Yeah, exactly. I'm fine. If life was everyone like puts it on Instagram, it's like, hey, look at me. Yeah. It's like, why do we have so many problems?
Right. But if you can be clear in not only asking for help, but be clear in asking to provide it. Coming back again to the suicide question, not just, hey, are you okay? How's your day? But literally asking, hey, do you need help? Are you considering hurting yourself? Ask that question. And that's uncomfortable as hell to ask that. Are you considering hurting yourself? That's an uncomfortable question to ask. But if a person is considering hurting themselves, that's the question they need to ask. That's the question they need to hear. Yeah. That's the question they need to hear. And when they do, they're more likely to open up to you and say, yes, I am. I'm considering hurting myself and I need help. Than if you just say, hey, how's your day going, buddy? How's it going there, chum? That's not where we need to be.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, again, that's coming, just like you said, make a clear request. If you're offering help, be specific.
Right.
Instead of just being like, hey, how you doing? Like, and that requires some vulnerability too. I mean, 100%. Offering help, just be specific. And I think that's so much that what I've learned about being a better human, being more mindful, being a better leader it's all comes down to specificity and clarity.
Right.
That's because then I'm not wasting time. Then I'm just going right to the heart of the matter. Think of that, right to the heart of the matter. What's really, on the inside, what the feelings are that's going on in here. And your request or with that specificity might be kind of way off the mark in some ways, but at least you open the door to vulnerability. Right. And so you're being seen, and hopefully they'll like pull off their mask or whatever, man or woman. Yep. And they'll be like more willing to be like, well, actually things aren't going very well for me right now. And then that could be that opportunity, John, or that space and that awareness that we talked about earlier with Lindsay. It's like, just be like, hey man, if you just need someone to talk to, I'm here for you. Right. Versus, and that can turn into actually physically acting and helping somebody, or just holding space. And that could be alone, just holding space for somebody that's in crisis or contemplating something as devastating as suicide. That could be the turning point in their life.
Right. Yeah. All right, I want to read one more audience comment, and then we'll get into the grounding practice and wrap it up. I think, man, we could turn this into 2 shows because it is so powerful and so important. So let's see. John Wayne, again, brother. John Wayne is in the SJ4 Mastermind Alliance. He's one of the 4 Johns.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So he says, when I hired my first coach, I asked him to work with me through a season because the way I was going about it was very slow, and I had a lot of ups and downs and certainly no accountability. When I asked him, he was honored. Through that process, we were able to get to the root of the problem and achieve some great success and movement in my goals and problems. But it took me to be in a position where I was ready to be in that position. Removing the mask is not easy whatsoever, but it is so rewarding once you do. Man, tons of great comments here. Sorry we can't get to them all. Thank you so much for the input and amazing amazing comments, and we'll
Well,
come back to them after the show
yeah.
on the different social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn. So thank you for the comments, and we'll be sure to come back to them.
Yeah, and
Will,
all these comments live like right in like the LinkedIn feed typically, but also wherever we ever catch the show. Like there are a lot of great comments here that if you want to get more involved or actually want to help somebody, through with these comments, this is that's why I've created this platform. That's one of the reasons I love. I'm sometimes nervous as hell, John, going live. To be honest, to be vulnerable, but that's one of the reasons I love going live, and because we get to use this platform to not just help people that are out there listening, but like in this moment that
in this
we
moment.
can, in this moment, it's great.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
live and it's real and it's
absolutely,
raw
brother.
and it's unapologetic and it's right now. So
It is. It is as mindful as you can get, man, right here, right now.
yeah, it's very true. Very true. Well, what I'll say before we go, hey, if you're really enjoying the show, we please help us grow our audience because, I think you can see what we're doing here. This is an educational platform that we love doing, and we do this from a place of passion. So take a screenshot or send it to somebody that this can help them, right? This can be one of those moments to be like, hey, just doing a little small. I think one thing I'll say at the end, it's like maybe start small with those little help, asking for help. Doesn't have to be like, hey, help me move my house or something like that. It could just be something very tiny that can start creating that trust, change that emotional dynamic between you and whoever that person is, and watch how that relationship starts to grow and you start asking for more help from one another. So beautiful discussion here, John. Thank you so much for this space and everything that we're doing here. And everybody out there in the audience, thank you for going along on this ride in particular today, but also the entire mindfulness, Men Talking Mindfulness journey that we've been putting out there for over a year now, or I think we're episode 52 or something like that, 53.
Yep, something like that. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up with that closing practice, brother.
Okay, good. Great. So find that seat or get comfortable. If you can close your eyes, or just, take this in. We're going to just do some simple breathing and we'll take you through like a nice, easy visualization and we'll send it on our way. So let's do 3, 5, 5 breaths just to kind of get used to and understanding how a bigger breath can help us, but also taking a big smooth inhale, but also taking an exhale out the nose, which is going to help us to get into these physical and calmer emotional states. Exhale out through the nose to begin. Empty out. Good. Inhale through the nose. 5. Good. Exhaling easy. 5 through the nose. Good. Again, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. One more. Inhale. 5. Big breath. 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. And just take this moment. Just think of one thing that you need help with right now. One thing. It doesn't have to be. It could be big. It could be small. It could be something in between. One thing. See the person that you need help from, or that can give you help. See yourself calmly, right? Maybe using that breathing that we just did. Maybe after listening to this episode, just being more aware of the emotions that are required to ask for help or give help. And see yourself openly, honestly, vulnerably asking and making that request for help. And then lastly, see yourself on the other side of that request with that feeling of getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of the man box, letting go of control, and landing yourself on the other side of asking for help. Great. You can do this little meditation anytime you need it. We'll take one closing breath to complete. Let's exhale out the mouth. Nice. Inhale big. Exhale side out. Wow, John, that's our show. I think.
That's it.
Thank you.
That is it. Yeah, man. Powerful show. Thank you for everything that we discussed here today, Will. Thank you, audience, for being open and vulnerable with your comments here in the chat. And I got to put a shout out to Jeff Harris, one of our listeners, a buddy of mine here in the Colorado Springs area, recommended this recording booth right here at the library. Our local library has this. Pretty amazing spot. So hopefully I'll be using it more often in the future. But yes, thanks to Jeff. I appreciate that. Wanted to put that shout out real quick. And thank you, everyone, for
I'm just going to give one more shout out. Why not? Why not? You know, the Mindfulness Experience, 8 strategies to live life now, right? Find balance in an unbalanced world. That's by Keith Fiveson. Pick it up on Amazon or Barnes & Nobles. And I just want to give a little shout out to Keith because, you know, hey, he put in the work, you know, and this is going to help you, right, have a better life. So awesome, John. Thank you.
All right, brother.
And I think we're good, right?
Yes, we're good. Have a great weekend. Will, have a great weekend, everyone. Peace.
Peace. Thank you.
What happens when two dudes, one a retired Navy SEAL commander in Colorado Springs, and the other a hippie